Hello everybody, welcome to the ACS and Know Before webinar. This will be the first of a group of weekly webinars on various things we're doing here at ACS. I should introduce myself. I'm Steve Harley, if you already know. I'll be handing over shortly to Robert Hall from Know Before. Know Before is a key component of our security as a service offering to our managed service customers. And is also available as a standalone solution, which we can manage for you. But Robert will take you through that in more detail. Certainly a market leader, and we think a key component to being able to properly educate and defend our users and our estate. As we go through a little bit of housekeeping, if you have any questions, you're all on mute at the moment, but if you have any questions, you will be able to send a question or use the chat section just to raise those, and Robert, I'm sure, or myself will do our best to answer those. So without much more of a delay, I think I'll hand you over to Robert now, who can give us a better overview and educate us a little bit as to what Know Before can do for our organisations.
Great, thank you very much, and good. Thanks. Good morning, and good morning to everyone that's joined. Thank you all for joining. I know it's a bit of a strange time, but hopefully we can all use this time to learn something new over the next 45 minutes or so. I am going to go through some of the background information about who Know Before is, because I'm sure a lot of you will be wondering how this company exists and who they are. So I'm just going to go through some of that. I'm going to go through a few slides, not too many. Just to give you some of that background information, and then I will go through the platform just to show you exactly how you can use Know Before to get the most out of the product, and to deliver a security awareness training program that delivers results for you and your staff. So I'll start by covering the mission, or Know Before's mission. It is quite simply to enable employees to make more intelligent security decisions every day. Know Before have been around for about years now, with about 1,000 staff across the world. The revenues are about $1 billion, so they are a tech unicorn in the USA, which is obviously very good. They've got 30,000 customers worldwide, or over 30,000 customers. That number's going up all the time because of the fact that security awareness training is now a fundamental requirement for all companies, because it's required under GDPR. So across Europe, the Know Before product is growing rapidly. If you have a look at the industries that are covered by Know Before, or that Know Before sell into, you'll see that financial services are the biggest portion of that pie, but they're not the biggest portion by a long way. They only make up 13%. The rest of the industries are very close behind. So to me, that means that Know Before is a product that will work across multiple industries. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, Know Before will be relevant to you, and it will be it will help you in all industries. To where Know Before sits within the traditional security stack, you've got 7 traditional layers over here on the right hand side. These are traditional technology layers. These are things that all companies should have in place. Not all 7 layers are required, but or not all 7 layers will be in place. But those are the main layers that they are. Know Before adds a 7th layer of security, which is the security awareness layer. And the reason why they do that is because while these traditional 7 layers of security provide technology and a bit of artificial intelligence to protect users and protect data, the reality is that the technology, or those technology layers, are only as good as the people that develop it, and the technology and the artificial intelligence that's used within it. So what Know Before it tries to do is to use security awareness training to give users actual intelligence, so that they know how to spot a phishing attack, or a CEO fraud attack, or possibly a tailgating attack, where somebody stands outside your office block and with 2 cups of coffee in their hand, and says that their passport's in their pocket, can you let them in? If people don't know that could be a tailgating attack and not a genuine request, how are they supposed to protect against that? How are they supposed to identify and avoid those issues from coming up? So KnowBe4 is all about taking the traditional weakest layer or weakest link, which is staff, and turning it into the most effective layer of security, which is the human firewall. Way that KnowBe4 does this quite simply is through a series of or a basic cycle. You basically can train users, phish users, and analyze the data. And once you've done that, you can then train users on how to prevent mistakes in the future. So it doesn't matter what you start with, whether it's the training or the phishing side of things. But when you run the phishing test, you can analyze who clicks on links, who replies with sensitive information, or who opens attachments. And with that information, you can then deploy training to staff that is custom for them, and that will help staff learn from those mistakes. KnowBe4 is also the way it's available is with unlimited use. So it doesn't matter how much you want to use the application. It's like everything else in life. If the more you put into it, the more you get out. So the more training and phishing campaigns you run, the more effective it is. And because of that, KnowBe4 don't charge for usage. They only charge for a basic per user per month price for the platform, and that's what they charge. You've got access to all the content and functionality. Some of that functionality includes custom phishing, which means that you are able to take, as an example, one of the banking templates. So maybe you bank with Barclays Bank, and you'd like to run a test on your finance staff to see who would click on a link in a Barclays Bank email. So you can customize that Barclays Bank template, send it to your finance staff, and see who clicks on links. And then based on that information, you can then run training campaigns and advise those staff how to prevent those attacks. You can do the same thing with simulated attachments. So whether that's invoices that are sent to accounts, or purchase orders that are sent to sales staff, it doesn't matter what it is. You can attach a document to the email that might be a PDF labeled PO and then a number, or it may be an invoice and a number, or it could be a statement. Whatever you choose, you can name that attachment whatever you want, so that the recipient or the group or team that you send that a phishing attack to will see that as something that they receive on a regular basis. It will be something that's familiar to them, just to test how likely they are to look at the finer details of emails to see if they are attacks or not. What you're also able to get out of the KnowBe4 system is very detailed reporting. We understand that the way that you determine the value or see the value in a product is very often based on the quality and the detail in the reporting. KnowBe4 have got over 60 different reports that you can view on a monthly basis or on an ongoing basis, so that you can see what your phish prone percentage is, or how many users are completing training, and just to get a general idea of what kind of failures staff what kind of failures staff have, and then you can also understand what training to deliver. There's a ransomware guarantee. It basically, KnowBe4 say that if you do enough phishing and training within the KnowBe4 system, they will pay you up to $1,000 of the cost of a ransom attack. It's not to say that they condone paying ransoms. It's simply saying that in the event that a company is hit by a ransomware attack, and they've done enough phishing and training, and if the end user or the organization doesn't have adequate disaster recovery systems in place, and you feel that the only route to recover from the ransom attack is to pay the fee, then they will cover up to $1,000. And then the last thing is smart groups. So smart groups allows you to trigger certain responses to user activity within the system. So if somebody clicks on a phishing link, you can have them enroll in more advanced training. If somebody clicks on 5 phishing links, it might trigger an alert to that person's manager, so that manager can sit the person down and say to them, you need to be a bit more careful when you're clicking on links in emails, because they pose a risk. 91% of attacks come from phishing attacks or from phishing emails. So people need to be responsible, and people need to be aware of that before they click on links. By running the cycle of activity, KnowBe4 will deliver results, and the results that you'll see within KnowBe4 as follows. On average, across 9 million users of KnowBe4 worldwide, 30% of people will click on phishing tests when they get their first phishing email. So that's a huge percentage of 9 million users worldwide. After 3 months of using KnowBe4, the phish prone percentage drops down to 15%, and after 12 months, it drops down to 2%. The reason it doesn't necessarily get to 0 is because this this covers a lot of different sizes of organizations. So if you're a 10-user organization, then chances are you'll get very close to 0. If you're a 1,000-user organization, you're going to have staff turnover, and there's going to be new people coming into the business, and they won't necessarily have the same level of security awareness training as the rest of the staff, so they're more likely to click on links. Well, I also just want to highlight on this slide as well is that if you have traditionally done security awareness training as a one-off annual process, where somebody maybe comes into your business and does training on, let's say, the 1st of April, the problem that there is with that type of system, especially with GDPR compliance, is if somebody joins the day after that, they've got to wait 12 months almost for the next training session. So with KnowBe4, you can actually enroll new starters in a series of security awareness training that covers everything that you would want new starters to know about security and health and safety and HR and everything else within the business. So that is automatically deployed to new starters through the system, which means that when new people come into the business, you don't have to worry about what their background is in terms of the security awareness that they've got. You can deliver training to them on the spot. What I'd also say is that these are great stats to be able to show on a slide, but the reality is that unless you do a phishing test yourselves and you get a report to show how many people within your own business are actually clicking on links, these stats are kind of meaningless. So what we would suggest is that through ACS 365, you've got the opportunity to run a free phishing test for 7 or 14 days. And at the end of that free phishing test for your staff, we will give you a report that shows how much of a risk your staff pose to your business. And based on that, then you can get a good understanding of what the risk is and the next steps in how to prevent that risk in future. So if you'd like to do a free trial, please speak to the people at ACS 365. What you would also see, or what you'll see on the slide as well, is that there's a Forrester report that's about 56 pages long. It says that companies that use KnowBe4 have got 127% return on investment. This isn't a document that I've read, but the summary of it is that because users have security at the top of their mind, companies experience reduced malware infections, reduced data loss, reduced potential cyber theft, and increased user productivity. It stands to reason that if all systems are up and running and they're running effectively within your business, users will be able to do more in a shorter amount of time because they won't have any delays or any slow systems. So yeah, I can share the link to that report with ACS and with everybody on this call, so that you have that and you can have a read through it. Moving on to the last slide I'm going to show you, this is the Gotham Magic Quadrant for Security Awareness Training. This was released in July 2019. It's the last version of this report that's available. And it clearly shows that KnowBe4 is the market leader. The difference between KnowBe4 and a competitor like Proofpoint is that where Proofpoint focuses entirely on the enterprise space, the issue that companies have or users have is they don't actually cater for small businesses or even medium businesses because their pricing is geared entirely for enterprise customers. The difference with KnowBe4 is that the pricing with KnowBe4 works for a single one-user company all the way up to 100,000 users. The product will scale. The content is available at all levels. There's no limitation. And a company of 1 or 5 or 10 users can use the system just as easily and just as effectively as a company with 10,000 users or more. So it's a truly scalable product, both in terms of functionality and in terms of pricing. I'm just going to pause the screen for a second and go across to the platform. So this is the KnowBe4 dashboard. You will have this, and this will be available to you to use and manage if you choose to do it that way. What you also have with KnowBe4 is the option of and with ACS 365 is the option of going with a managed service for the product. When I say managed service, I mean ACS 365 will do everything that I'm about to show you. All the functionality that I'm about to show you will be covered by ACS 365, so that you don't have to worry about it. Because at the end of the day, this is not an endpoint security product that you install on devices and you then wait for the monthly reports. This is a product that needs to be driven by somebody in order to get the maximum value out of it. Because if you don't have people setting up phishing tests and running those phishing tests and monitoring those the way people fail those phishing tests, and you don't have people running training campaigns, users won't be getting they won't be being tested, and they won't be trained. And obviously that will lead to you as an end user seeing very little value in the product. So what we found is that partners or end users that use a company to provide a managed service for the KnowBe4 product tend to have a far better experience with the product. They get a lot more out of it, and they see a lot more value in it because staff are actually being trained. And because of that, companies are less likely to suffer security breaches. So if you're interested in that, speak to ACS 365. They'll give you more information on exactly what that service covers. What you get within the KnowBe4 dashboard is, to start on here, you've got the organization risk score. So this is a combination of different sets of data from each user, so it looks at how many users are clicking on phishing tests within the KnowBe4 system, how many users are completing the training that they've been assigned, what the users' job titles are. It might not seem like it's a relevant thing, but certain jobs and departments have deal with more sensitive information. So if you consider finance or HR staff, they deal with more sensitive information, and as a result of that, they have a naturally higher risk score associated with them, and KnowBe4 takes all of that into account. And over time, that score should reduce through the use of KnowBe4. Going on to the phishing section, and what I would this is just a graph that shows the last 6 months worth of phishing tests, so you get a good idea of which way the graph is trending. But there's also a comparison over here, and if I go to, I'm going to go to small, because if you're going to large organizations, it skews the numbers, and I don't want to give I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to show the maximum score. I just want to show a real score across all industries. If you cover all industries and you say sub 250 user companies, and you look at the baseline program maturity, which means the first phishing test that was sent to users, on average, across the 9 million users of KnowBe4 worldwide, 36.8% of users click on that first email. If you then move that to 90 days, you'll see this blue line moves down. So what we're able to do is, after 3 months of using KnowBe4, we can have a conversation with you to say, you've been using it really well. Your phish prone percentage is below the industry average, so that means that you're getting the value out of the product that's been promised. If it is above the 13.2%, what we can then look at is whether you're doing enough phishing campaigns or training campaigns, because the cold sort of reality of it is that companies that do one training campaign per quarter, or one training campaign per every 6 months, they will naturally get a far lower success rate out of the product, because staff aren't learning as much. So the more training you deliver to staff, the more they'll learn, and the quicker that score will reduce, which means the quicker your risk as an organization reduces from phishing attacks. If you move that to 1 year, you can have the same sort of view. The blue line moves down to 3.9%. So that will again give you the opportunity to look at what you're doing and assess whether you're getting the most out of the product or not. And if you feel you aren't getting the most out of the product, we can discuss why that possibly is. So yeah, so that covers. It's just a really nice way of being able to track your company against other companies of the same industry, because there are various industries that you can select from. You can compare your company to other industries that use KnowBe4, or sorry, other companies that use KnowBe4 in the same industry, and you can see exactly where you compare to them. Then going on to the phish alert section, this is a very small part of KnowBe4. It's a lot of people see it as fairly insignificant, but the reality is that it's a very useful part of KnowBe4. It's a phish alert is a plugin for Office 365 and for Google Chrome, and the idea with it is that whenever a user opens an email and they view an email, if they see anything that is suspicious or that they think is suspicious, they are able to click the phish alert button. And what phish alert does is it will first of all check to see if that is a simulated attack from the KnowBe4 system. If it is, it says, well done, you've spotted a simulated attack, which reinforces that idea that KnowBe4 is not about catching people out and making them feel like they've made a huge mistake. It's about letting them know that this is a system that is here to help them. So click on the phish alert button. If it's a phishing test from KnowBe4, it says, well done, you've spotted a simulated phishing test. If it is not a simulated test from KnowBe4, it will delete the email from the user's inbox, and it will then send that email to a system administrator that can look at the email in a very critical way, and can then decide whether that attack is a malicious attack or if it's just a false positive. Either way, that's good information for companies to have, because if you know how many phishing attacks are being detected by users, that gives you a very good indication of how effective the training has been for your staff. Because these stats over here effectively show you how well your human firewall is working. So that's good information to have. Going on to the phishing side of things, because this is a good place to start. KnowBe4 have got more phishing tests or phishing templates than anyone else in the industry. There's over 4,500 emails that can be sent out. You'll see that some of these are regionalized, so there's Australia ones there, and you'll also see that there are some that are very topical. So there's 3 new sections that have been added to the KnowBe4 phishing test in the last couple of weeks that relate specifically to coronavirus. There is a lot of phishing going out at the moment, or phishing attacks going out. In fact, there's been a 667% increase in phishing attacks in the last month. That's people looking to exploit the fact that there's a lot of press around coronavirus, but it's also basic things that relate to systems that we all use in our day-to-day lives now that we're all working from home. So things like Teams, Office 365. So this one over here is a basic Office 365 notification that there's a voice message or VoIP message that relates to a user. So it will link to, or it gives the user the option to listen now, and it tests who's likely to fall for that. If I go into more stuff, and the reason why I'm focusing on IT stuff is because 65% of UK businesses have migrated to Office 365. As a result of that, Office 365 or Microsoft is a huge target for attackers, because of the fact that we all know and trust Microsoft. And as a result of that, 68% of phishing attacks are actually Microsoft branded. So a very good example of an email that we probably all have seen is this one over here. So Office 365, change your password immediately. What KnowBe4 is actually testing when it sends out, or when you send this email, is whether the user looks at the email address that it's coming from to see if it's a valid email address, whether they look at the subject line and the body of the email to see if there's a sense of urgency. So it's got the word immediately over there. it's there again, and it's also got a time limit within 24 hours. That adds a sense of urgency to the email that the user receives. And the reason why there's a sense of urgency is because attackers want staff to act on impulse. We all know that changing passwords regularly is a positive thing for the security of the company. So they send a message that reinforces that positive idea or that positive concept that we all have, and then they add a sense of urgency, because more often than not, users will simply get this email, click on the link, and try to change their password. The problem is that if they took the second to hover the mouse over the link in that email, all applications will show where that link is actually going. So if they hover over the link, there will be a little pop-up that shows what the link is going to. If it's not Office 365 or it's not the exact Office domain, then users should know that it's a phishing attack. So that's just basic advice that everybody should follow. That's basic advice that at this time as well is very important, because when we were all in offices, we could just turn to the person next to us and say, does this email look right to you, or does this email look legitimate to you? And we'd get another set of eyes that look at that email in a critical way. But at the moment, we don't have that option because we're working from home, and we can't just turn to the person next to them and ask them. So having the understanding that if you just hover over that link, it will tell you where it's going, and that's a great way of preventing phishing attacks. But KnowBe4 tests all of that, and it will hold an insight into whether users do those things when they receive emails. That there are banking emails as well. So I'll just go into one of those just to give you an idea of how you can customize those. So I'll click on this. These emails can be fully customized, so you can spoof whatever you want in terms of the email. Obviously, it's probably better not to spoof the exact domain that Barclays have, because there are SPF records and the emails will be blocked. So it's better to spoof it in terms of maybe changing a character or adding a bit to it. So this is Barclays-security-alerts.co.uk. The sender's name can be spoofed completely, because I think it's 71% of emails are opened on mobile devices. So very often people won't actually even see the email address that it's coming from. They'll just see Barclays and they'll think it's a legitimate email. I mentioned earlier that you can add attachments. There's a variety of different attachments you can add to it. So again, you can make the email as believable as you want for the person receiving it. And then you can go into the email and you can add the random number. So it might be the credit card, it might be 4 digits from the credit card, it might be the bank account number, and you can customize the transaction details so that it looks more relevant. And by doing that, you are creating an attack that is very focused, and you can then send that email to finance or accounts or whatever, and see who's likely to click on that link. So you can do all of that within the KnowBe4 system. You can also create a CEO fraud test. So you can do a fully customized test, which may be the MD or CEO of your business sending an email to various staff within the company to see who's likely to respond to an email saying, I'm out of the, obviously not right now, out of the office, but I'm unable to get online at the moment. My internet's down. Can you please do a transfer to this account? So you can run a very specific custom attack to staff to see who will actually respond to that email. And the reason why that's important now is, again, because we're not in the office, accounts or finance can't simply go to the MD or CEO or FD and ask the question, are you sure you want me to send this payment? So again, it's a way of testing what the process is and how effective staff are at spotting these attacks. So that's the phishing side of things. What you also have with KnowBe4 is a series of landing pages as well. So it's not just about getting people to click on a link. It's about seeing what people do when they've clicked on the link. So the first option you've got is you can do a basic oops landing page. This is a very common version or very common page that is used. And the reason why this is very common is because, again, it reinforces that idea that KnowBe4 is not here to catch people out. It is there to advise people. This one says, oops, you clicked on a simulated phishing test, kind of giving the message that it's not the end of the world, it's a test, everything's fine. What it also gives the user is 3 rules that they can read over and just keeping them in their mind next time they get an email. So number 1, stop, look, think. Number 2 is, do I spot a red flag? Number 3, when in doubt, throw it out or hit the phish alert button. So you've got immediate training that's delivered to the users to help them, and hopefully that training, that bit of advice is received by the user as a sign of, okay, well, this is here to help me, not to make me look like an idiot. You can also have a bit of fun, and the way you can have a bit of fun with users is by deploying this landing page. This is a very popular landing page because in the traditional office space, people will notice this popping up on their screen. They will also hear it in the office, and that raises awareness by creating a bit of banter around the fact that Rick Astley is playing on people's machines or on people's screens. It's also going to be a lot more memorable for the user that clicks on the link and sees this, because you will remember Rick Astley popping up on your screen. This is not to say that that's the kind of thing that would work for all companies. If you've got a company culture that's a bit more serious then that's fine. You don't have to use it. But the point I'm trying to get across as well is that with KnowBe4, you've got different options that allow you to match the culture within your business to the kind of response to the phishing test. So if you're if there's a serious culture, you can do the basic oops landing page. If there is a relaxed culture, then you can do the Rick rolled. What you can also do though is you can test how far people go with the mistake that they, or with the click, or with the failure. So this is a great landing page deploy, because if what this test is not only that the user clicks on a link in the first place, but it also tests what they do when they get to a page like this. Do they enter their email address and password, or do they look at it and say, that URL at the top of the screen is not Office 365, so I'm not going to click on I'm not going to enter my email address and password. So it's a great way of protecting credentials and also understanding who's likely to fall for an Office 365 credential harvesting attack like this. The point I'll make on this is that it's not just about whether those credentials work on Office 365, because I'm sure most of you also use two-factor authentication. The problem is that very often two-factor authentication isn't available on all systems. So there was a company in London that we've got on the platform that had a phishing attack that linked to a page exactly like this. The user entered their email address and password, and because they used the same email address and password for multiple systems, the attackers were able to push that username and password out across multiple systems, and they were able to get into their accounting system. Once they were in their accounting system, all they had to do was change the payment details or the account details on on the invoice template. And as a result of that, the company lost £1 million in payments going to the wrong account. So it's a very important test to be able to run. Coming back to how you run training campaigns phishing campaigns within KnowBe4, you're able to run them in a fully randomized way. So not only are you able to stagger the sending of emails over a period of 3 days, 5 days, or however long you choose, you can also fully randomize the tests as well. So you can select multiple categories from this section over here. So we'll do brand knockoffs, we'll do IT, and we'll do UK or Britain current events. And when you select the full random option over here, what will happen is that KnowBe4 will send a different email to every user, and they will get them at different times of the day as well. So one person might get an Office 365 password reset on a Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. and another person might get a pizza 55th anniversary voucher on a Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. So it is all completely randomized, so there's no predictability from users. They won't be able to sit there and look at the clock and say, okay, well, it's 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, here comes our phishing test. So it means that the results of these tests are always going to be very relevant. But what it also does is, because of the fact that people don't know when those emails are coming, they're able to to they will always be looking for that phishing test. And because they're looking for phishing tests, they're also more likely to spot phishing attacks. So it's a very important way of being able to run the test. That is the phishing side of things. The last thing I'll show on the phishing side is the reports. So again, you've got the same report that you had on the dashboard. What you also have is of all users according to their phish prone percentage. The phish prone percentage is basically how likely the person is to click on phishing links. So if you go into this user at the top of the list, you can see all the information that relates to this user, the risk, the personal risk score, the risk score factors, so job function, behavior, training, booster, exposure. You can see the last 6 months of that, and then into the phishing test that the user clicked on. So if we go to this one over here, what will this be? Okay, so this is a great example of the kind of thing that that can come up. A couple of questions that can come from this insight is, first of all, why would somebody be clicking on a Tinder email on their work account? Because they probably wouldn't have Tinder associated with their work email accounts, or shouldn't have at least. What it will also be able to, or the other question that it can raise is, why is a member of staff clicking on a link in a Tinder email during work time? So it does give you a good insight into what kind of things, what kind of actions users are doing within email. You also see a full list of training campaigns that have been completed and they've been assigned to do event timeline. And this event timeline is effectively the audit that shows how or every interaction that the user has within the system. So all the training campaigns they've been enrolled in, all the emails have been sent, all the replies, everything the user does within the system is logged here, so that investigation as part of a breach. It means that you're able to demonstrate that potentially, or that first of all, yes, you have got security awareness training. Secondly, you do have reporting, and finally, that any breach that occurred was just unfortunate instead of company negligence. So yeah, so you're able to demonstrate all of that. There are the attacks that you can deliver to staff. So there's phishing, which is voice phishing. There's various templates over here as well. So if I just go to the UK English ones, you'll see things like Revenue Office, Windows expired key. There's Doctor's Office test results, and all of these are voice messages that are delivered as phone calls to the users. So the user will receive a phone call, they'll answer it, and the message will read something that will request information from the user. So it might be a date of birth, it might be the last 4 digits of their bank account number or card number. And the reason why you're able to do that with Know Before is because that's information that can be delivered, that can be used in more targeted phishing, spear phishing attacks. So it's very important to be able to test on users to see who falls for that kind of thing as well. Then you've got USB drive tests. Coming back to the point I made earlier about the fact that tailgating is a real threat these days. The reality is that it's easier for attackers to gain physical access to a building than to gain access through the network. So these days, tailgating is a big way of delivering an attack. Attackers will get into a building, leave a USB drive somewhere that contains malware, and then they'll see and then they'll hope for somebody to pick up that USB drive and put it into a machine and spread the malware across the network in that way. So with the USB drive test, Know Before will provide the files, you provide the USB. You can label that USB whatever you want, maybe staff wages or salaries or incentives, bonuses, whatever you like. And then you can leave that in a high traffic area of the office to see who picks up that USB drive and puts it into the machine. What you will get from that is, because the files are beaconized, you'll be able to see who opened the file, where it was opened, when it was opened, and they'll be able to deliver that to, you'll be able to get that information. So yeah, sorry, I was just distracted by that. It's not actually my birthday. But anyway, going back to the to know before, what you have on the training side of things is a huge amount of different content within the system. KnowBefore's got more content than anyone else, and the subscription that you would get from ACS 365 is the diamond level subscription. The reason why this is the focus on is because diamond level gives you 1,100 different bits of training content. You drop down the gold or platinum, it only gives you 188 results. So it reduces the amount of content you can deliver to your staff. So we use the diamond level subscription because that gives you the most value for money. The training that you get within KnowBefore as well covers attack vectors, so SEO fraud, phishing, ransomware, social engineering, tailgating, which I mentioned a couple of times. Then there's also a full compliance section as well. So if you want to deliver training around GDPR compliance to your staff, you can do that within KnowBefore. If you want to do training around PCI and PCI DSS for staff, for finance staff, you can do that in KnowBefore. There's PII, which is personal identifiable information, that can be deployed through KnowBefore as well. There's HIPAA for healthcare, and VERPA for education, and more. So there is compliance training there that you can use. And then in terms of human resources, there's training around harassment in the workplace. There's health and safety training, and that covers everything from defensive driving through to how to lift up boxes and how to walk up and down stairs and things. So there's training that covers everything within the KnowBefore system. What it also has is, and I'm just going to focus on this one because we're all working from home, or most of us are, there's how how users should protect their corporate data and their corporate devices while they're working from home. So this is a 5-minute long training module that's from a UK content publisher called Swiss and Shout. This is very popular in the UK because it's UK actors, it's UK settings, it's scenario-based training, and it's actually quite light-hearted. So if I skip through to about this part over here, you can see it's traditional office sort of scenarios, and in this particular one, the male was asking how this woman actually works when at home, and her response was, well, obviously I've got a desk and it's all clean and tidy and it's all very well organized, but then it showed the reality. And not to say that that's wrong, but just it just puts a sort of funny spin on the training. What it also says that when you get to the end of this training module, there's also a test. So the users have to complete the test in order to complete the training, and that training that test has to be passed with a mark of 80%. So users can't just sort of wing it and skip through the video. Very often, very often if they do skip through the training, they will fail the test. So it's important to do that. What it gives you is a way of tracking how effective the training has been for your staff. But which you've got that 5 minutes there, which is light-hearted and informal. What you've also got is a section 30 minutes Kevin Mitnick security awareness training module, which is delivered by what's information based from Kevin Mitnick, who used to be the world's most notorious hacker. He now works for KnowBefore, and he delivers training content. So you've got different ways to deliver the training to your staff, whether it's light-hearted and informal and small little bunches or small little sections of training that staff can complete in 5-10 minutes. Or if people have failed a lot of phishing tests, you can actually put them through maybe this 45-minute Kevin Mitnick module over here, just as a way of ensuring they get the knowledge that they need to have. Just on Mitnick stuff, it is a 45-minute module, but it's not. You can't skip through any of it. You have to interact with it. You have to click next. You have to click to navigate and go through the training. And by doing that, it ensures that the user's engaged with the training and that they are actually learning, because they have to click next. They can't skip to the 45th minute and claim that they've watched it. Before also goes training staff or giving staff training on how to protect their kids online. So there's cyberbullying training. And the reason why I always mention that is because that is the kind of thing that is useful to staff in their everyday lives. It's not necessarily anything to do with their company or the corporate security, but it's helping those staff protect their children while they are on the internet and using devices. So I like to focus on that because it shows that KnowBe4 is able to deliver content that is useful to staff in a lot of different ways than just the corporate security. So that's the training. That's the mod store. That's where all of the content lives. What you would also, what the users would see when they use an KnowBe4 system is a very scaled down version of the platform. They don't see any of the phishing campaign stuff. They just see the training that they've been enrolled in. That there are there's a security culture survey, which is one of the things that is used to understand what type of culture a company has, so we can decide whether you do formal or informal training or how often you do training and all that kind of thing. Is training modules that they have to complete, or there's policy documents that staff can read, complete, and mark as acknowledged. So it's a great way of deploying policy documents to staff. So that might be GDPR, it might be employment policy documents, whatever it is you want to deploy, you can do it. Also, once somebody's completed a campaign, they can also use they can also download the certificates and print it out, put it on their desk or whatever, because that again adds to that sense of accountability the users have when they go through the system. Another way the thing that reinforces that positive message is earning badges. So as people do different things within the system, they'll earn badges. You may have noticed as well that there are games that can be deployed to users. So there's Spot the Phish, there's Phish Alert games, and there's quite a lot of different ones. KnowBe4 added a gamification element to the system, and by doing that, it helps encourage people to go through those games and use them as a way of training, because we all know that a bit of competition between different departments and staff is always a good thing. It does tend to get people motivated to do the training. So that's what users see, and they get access to the system through either through a passwordless link or through single sign-on, which means that they don't need to remember a separate username and password to access the system. What we do when we set up a program for you is we don't just say, okay, well, this is a one size fits all. There's too much content and there's too much training. Both on the phishing and the training side to do that. So what KnowBe4 have got is the Automated Security Awareness Program. This is a series of questions that end user organizations go through, and it asks them questions like, who do you want to train? What do you want to train them on? Do you want to train staff on compliance? Do you want to train staff on, or how often do you want to train staff? How often do you want to phish test staff? And based on the way that companies answer those questions, we can then understand what type of program the end user wants. So by doing that, you get a program that is custom created for you. It's not just a sort of cookie cutter scenario where one size fits all, you get the same program as everybody else. The program will be completely customized for you. And one of the things you will get as part of that when you sign up and when you're on board with the system is this 14-page document which outlines, when it loads, all of the activity that will be delivered as part of your managed service. So it's a group of first of all holding the managed service provider to account to say, this is what you've said you'll deliver. Now you've got to go and deliver it. So it's a statement of work, but it's also of the course of so yes, so that's ASAP. That's how we understand what the culture is within your business, and how to give you the maximum possible value within KnowBe4. And then the last thing I'll show is reports. And what I would also say at this point is, if you've got any questions, please send them over, just because we'll cover them once I've covered the report section. So within the report section, I mentioned earlier that there's about 60 different reports that you can use. You can type in a word or phrase to get the report that you want, or you can actually just click the microphone button and speak to the computer and tell it what report you want, and it will go and generate that report. Or you can just use options on the left hand side here. So as an example, if there's a member of staff that's a repeat offender, you can go into the user report card, you can put and download it as a PDF, so that if you sit down or you call that member of staff in to talk about the activity and the amount of time they failed phishing tests, you can give a copy of the report and say, this is the information that we have. This is the kind of risk that you pose in terms of the phish prone percentage. So you've got that option. Just going back to the main section, you've also got the phish prone percentage, so you can see what your company's phish prone percentage is over a period of time, see whether what the benefit is to the system. And then there's a lot of different reports as well. So phish failure percentage, email sent, template failures. So you can see exactly how many or what the typical failures are that staff have, the type of emails that they clicked, and also the type of failures they have. So whether how many times people have clicked on things, how many times attachments have been opened, data entered, and all that kind of thing. And then all the way through to training status, training comparison, training hours, and everything else. So there's a lot of different reports within the system. You can get the reports that you want, and as part of the managed service that is delivered to you on a monthly basis, as well as a discussion around which members of staff are particularly high risk, and how you can actually do more to protect your company against ongoing attacks and malicious attacks. So that is the KnowBe4 platform. I see that there are some questions, so should we get into those? Let me just get the first. Okay, so the first question is, has coronavirus phishing been particularly successful? Sadly, yes, it has. And it's not, like I said earlier, it's not just about emails linking to the World Health Organization, or emails linking to the CDC, because sometimes those are far more specific to certain industries. The phishing tests or the phishing attacks that are being delivered around coronavirus are things like Teams. So I don't know about the rest of the companies on this call, but we use Teams a lot more now, just because it's a great way of collaborating. It allows us to do video calls or voice calls to other members of staff. It allows us to collaborate on documents. But because of the fact that I think it's something like 62 million people have started using Teams in the last 2 weeks, attackers will obviously see that type of usage as something that's new for them to attack, because a lot of those 62 million people will never have seen an email from Teams. So suddenly, if they get an email from Teams saying you've got a new message from this person, or there's a new document that you've been asked to collaborate on, click here. That's the kind of attack that's on the increase now, because of the fact that we're all working remotely. We can't just talk to the person next to us and find out if it's legitimate, or we can't just go into the boardroom or into a meeting room and have a discussion with somebody about a document like we normally would do. So things like that are being attacked, and that's why, one of the things that you'll get within KnowBe4 is training that will say, always think in a critical way. Never trust an email. If you get an email from your bank, don't click on the link. go to the bank's website and access your account through that way, or don't click on don't click the link in an email. Use the application on your phone to get into the account, or if you get a phone call, hang up and call the company back, but call the number that you have for them back. So it will do that kind of, it will give you that kind of insight, and you'll be able to get a good understanding of that. So coronavirus hasn't necessarily caused an increase in coronavirus related phishing attacks, but it's increased general phishing attacks around the general subject. Another question is there a phishing reporter, phishing flagger plugin for Outlook? Not just for the web-based Office 365. So the Phish Alert button it integrates at domain level. So when I mentioned that it's a plugin for Office 365, it will filter through to Outlook. So the user will have that Phish Alert button available in their email in Outlook. So yes, it's there. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Is it also available, Robert, on Outlook for iPhone?
No, it's not. It's not at this point. And that's a good question. It's not on Outlook for mobile. I think that's a bit more tricky because there aren't generally very many integrations that you can do that you can use. So personally, I open a lot of emails on my mobile or on my tablet. So it is a bit of a pain. But what I always do is if there's an email that I see as potentially suspicious, I don't open it on my mobile or my tablet. I wait until I'm back on my PC and I open it there, and then if I think it's a phishing attack, I'll hit the Phish Alert button.
Okay, might be worth us just catching up after. So I think I can see it on mine at the moment, the Phish Alert, but yeah, it's maybe our guys have managed to do something a bit different.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So yeah. So are there any other questions? Actually, sorry. Yeah, I see it is there, but you have to click on the options, the three dots options to get to the more options. That is on Outlook for mobile. So yeah. Thank you very much. Well spotted.
No worries.
Okay, it seems like that's all the questions for now. Obviously, if there's any other questions, please send them to Office to ACS 365, and we'll get back to you on that. Okay.
Okay. So if I just wrap up then. Thank you ever so much, Robert. I think we can all see that that's a very powerful tool that gives us some real options around how we secure our users and our organisations. And I think particularly what we're likely to see around coronavirus and the amount of home working, as you'd alluded to, a significant increase in that risk, which kind of reinforces how important it is to be looking at our cybersecurity, looking at our user training and our capabilities to defend our businesses. But thank you ever so much for that, and I hope that's been useful. We will be running different sessions every Wednesday with different organisations, and hopefully you'll join us next week, where I think we've got a Ultimate Teams demo booked in. So thank you ever so much, Robert.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody for joining.
Brilliant, fantastic. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.